What caused the Palestinian group Hamas to launch an attack on Israel? What were the events leading up to this escalation? These questions have been echoing around the globe as the world watches the unfolding conflict with bated breath. The seeds of this conflict were sown in the wee hours of a Saturday morning. The Palestinian armed group, Hamas, launched an operation they named Al-Aqsa Flood against Israel. This marked a severe escalation in tensions, the likes of which hadn't been seen since their 11-day war in 2021. This wasn't a sporadic outburst of violence but a calculated move, with Hamas claiming to have fired a staggering 5,000 rockets. Israel confirmed that Hamas fighters had infiltrated their territory, launching attacks from the land, sea and air. The timing of these attacks was no coincidence. They were strategically planned to coincide with Simchat Torah, a significant Jewish holiday falling at the end of Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles, a week-long Jewish festival. The first round of rockets was fired at the crack of dawn at 6:30 a.m. local time. As the day broke over the region, the Israeli army responded by launching Operation Iron Swords against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The early morning attacks disrupted the peace and tranquility of the Jewish festival, plunging the region into a state of chaos and uncertainty. The reach of the attacks was far and wide, with rockets fired as far north as Tel Aviv, and Hamas fighters infiltrating southern Israel. Reports flooded in of gunmen opening fire on passers-by in the town of Sderot, and social media was awash with footage of city streets in turmoil and gunmen in jeeps patrolling the countryside. Meanwhile, the Israeli army reported that dozens of their fighter jets were engaged in attacks on Hamas targets in the Gaza Strip. Gun battles erupted in several towns in southern Israel, adding to the escalating tension and conflict. As the first rockets were launched at 6:30 a.m. local time, the region braced for a new wave of conflict. The world watched on, anxiously waiting to see how this new chapter in the long-standing dispute between Israel and Hamas would unfold. The attack was not limited to one front but from land, sea and air. But where exactly did these attacks take place? In a move that marked a significant escalation, the geographic spread of the attacks expanded as far north as Tel Aviv, one of Israel's most populous cities. But this was not just a distant engagement. The conflict also saw the infiltration of Hamas fighters into southern Israel, bringing the reality of battle onto the home front. In the town of Sderot, reports came in of gunmen opening fire on passers-by. Imagine the terror of an ordinary day disrupted by the sudden eruption of gunfire. Social media was soon flooded with footage showing clashes in the city streets, a stark contrast to the normalcy of everyday life. There were even alarming reports of gunmen in jeeps roaming the countryside. But perhaps the most chilling part of this narrative was the claim that Hamas fighters had taken control of multiple Israeli civilian population centers. Picture the horror of residents, their homes turned into battlegrounds, pleading for help from their government. In response, the Israeli army launched a swift counterattack. Dozens of fighter jets zoomed across the sky, their destination, Hamas targets in the Gaza Strip. This was not a mere skirmish or a series of isolated incidents, this was war, with gun battles erupting in several towns in southern Israel. With multiple towns under attack and the Israeli army retaliating, the conflict had escalated to a full-blown battle. As day turned into night, it became clear that the situation was no longer just about the initial attack, but had transformed into a broader, more complex conflict. In the face of this onslaught, the Israeli army launched their own operation. But what did this involve? As the sun rose over the horizon, the Israeli army initiated what they called Operation Iron Swords, a decisive response to the initial attack from Hamas. This operation was not merely a defensive maneuver, but a strategic offensive against the very heart of Hamas operations in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli army, known for its advanced military capabilities, brought to bear the full might of its air force. They deployed dozens of their state-of-the-art fighter jets, streaking across the skies like iron swords, hence the operation's name. These were not random, aimless strikes. The targets were carefully chosen, each one a critical component of Hamas's operational infrastructure. The primary targets of these airstrikes were the training camps used by Hamas, where new recruits are molded into soldiers ready for battle. The goal was to disrupt the group's ability to replenish its ranks and to cripple its capacity to launch further attacks. But the strikes weren't limited to training camps alone. The Israeli army also targeted a security post and an underground site dedicated to the production of rocket engines. By striking at these sites, the aim was to cripple Hamas's ability to manufacture and deploy rockets, thus weakening their offensive capabilities. This operation, however, was not without its risks. Each fighter jet dispatched, each missile launched, had the potential to escalate the conflict further. Yet the Israeli army deemed it necessary in the face of the Hamas onslaught. It's important to note that while the Israeli operation was ongoing, the initial attacks by Hamas continued. Gun battles were reported in several towns in southern Israel, and rockets continued to rain down. The Israeli army's operation was not just about retaliation, but also about trying to bring some semblance of security to the beleaguered residents of these towns. As the Israeli army retaliated, the conflict continued to escalate, with no immediate end in sight. The chessboard was set, the pieces moving in a high-stakes game where the cost was measured in human lives and the peace of nations. And as the sun set, the echoes of Operation Iron Swords continued to reverberate, an ironclad testament to the grim reality of conflict. The immediate impact of this conflict was felt by individuals and communities, but what were the wider implications? With the rise of tensions and an increase in violence, the immediate region, and indeed the world, braced for the broader implications of this conflict. The escalation of hostilities between Hamas and Israel not only intensified fears of a wider conflict, but also brought to the forefront the potential for a more extensive regional fallout. In the heart of the Middle East, the ripples of this clash were felt far beyond the immediate battleground. The conflict sparked a resurgence of tensions in Jerusalem's Old City, threatening the delicate balance of peace in this historically volatile region. The Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, a site of paramount significance for Palestinians, became a flashpoint of confrontations, fueling the flames of discord. The international implications of this conflict were equally profound. The world watched with bated breath as the situation unfolded, the geopolitical equilibrium hanging in the balance. The response of the global community, particularly nations with vested interests in the region, played a critical role in shaping the trajectory of this conflict. On the domestic front, the conflict deepened divisions amongst American Jews regarding their stance on Israel, further complicating the political landscape in the United States. The partisan association of Israel with the Republican Party and the Christian right, catalyzed by the close ties between former President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has made it increasingly challenging for Israel to garner bipartisan support. Furthermore, the targeting of media offices in Gaza raised grave concerns about press freedom, prompting swift backlash from media advocacy groups and news organizations. The destruction of a building housing news outlets, including Al Jazeera, under the pretext of it containing Hamas military intelligence assets, raised questions about the sanctity of press freedom in the face of conflict. As the world watches, the question remains: how will this conflict evolve, and what will be the long-term impact? Understanding the reasons behind this conflict is crucial, but where does this leave us now? Let's take a step back and look at the key points we've discussed. The sudden escalation of violence initiated by Hamas under the banner of Operation Al-Aqsa Flood was a shocking development, one that saw rockets raining down as far north as Tel Aviv and fighters infiltrating southern Israel. Israel's response, Operation Iron Swords, saw an equally intense counterattack on Hamas targets in the Gaza Strip. But this wasn't just a series of disconnected events, it was the culmination of a long-standing conflict. A conflict rooted in deep-seated ideological differences, territorial disputes, and political power struggles. All this happened against the backdrop of Simchat Torah, a significant Jewish festival, adding a further layer of tension to the situation. The impact of these attacks was profound and far-reaching, with consequences that rippled out, affecting not just those directly involved, but also the international community. Yet, amidst the chaos and destruction, one can't help but wonder about the potential for resolution. Is there a road to peace in this region, a region that has seen so much conflict? Is it possible for these two groups to find a way to coexist, to move beyond the cycle of violence and retaliation? These are difficult questions with no easy answers. The future of the region is uncertain, and the path towards peace is fraught with challenges. But one thing is clear: understanding the complexities of this conflict, the motivations and actions of the parties involved, is a crucial first step. Only by doing so can we hope to make sense of the situation, to navigate the intricacies of the conflict, and perhaps to find a way towards resolution. As we continue to observe these developments, it is clear that understanding the complexities of this conflict is key to finding a path towards peace.